Hi, this is PatZi with a Z, and I am so thrilled today to welcome a very special guest, Jerome Charron, and we are going to be talking about a wonderful book, Maria la Divina, and it is about Maria Callas, and this is a thrill for me. Wow, Jerome, it's so nice to see you again. It's been a long time. Last time we were talking about Big Red, which
Right. Yeah.
I love that book. I love that book.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah.
Having
Thank
worked in Hollywood and being in that environment, that the book thrilled me. And it's so interesting here in this book. You start with a little quote from Orson Welles at the very
Right.
beginning that
Right.
our songs will all be silenced, but what of it? Just go on singing. So
Singing.
that's it. We have to keep
That's
going.
it.
We have to keep going. We never give up.
We have to keep singing.
That's right. Sing and write and keep it going. It's
Yes.
so amazing. It's over 50 books. And how can
Well,
I?
I work hard and I'm a slave driver. So my wife has to help me and she does and she's loving. And so I'm able to do it, but I'm not sure at this period I'd be able to do it without her.
It is so much fun, first of all. That reminds me, when you started writing, you were writing by hand or with a typewriter?
I wrote by hand, but then I would put it on a typewriter. Then I started working on a typewriter directly after a while because I was thinking. And then when I was teaching at the American University of Paris, some of my students, after a long period, taught me how to use a computer. I had one. I brought one with me to Paris, but I never used it. So my students, after a great deal of time, taught me how to use the computer. And now I write directly on the computer because I'm hearing the music. For me, the music is essential. And once I hear it, I can put it down. Though I only use 2 or 3 fingers, I really can't type. So I'm not sure you could even call it typing.
I was recently talking to Margaret George. I went up to see her up in Madison, and she showed me her
Right,
manuscript for the autobiography of Henry, which she
right.
wrote by hand,
Yeah,
900 pages.
yeah,
And then she had to write it again because she had to send a copy to the publisher.
right.
So she
Yeah.
wrote 900 pages by hand twice. So,
I
but
did that when I was in high school, and most of the kids had typewriters. I was much poorer than they were. I went to a very good school, and I always handed in my compositions without a typewriter. I don't know, as a writer, and even as a kid, when I was 5 years old, I've always been living inside my head. I think from the day I was born, my mother called me a mystery, and I never spoke. And I always lived into the dialogue has always been inside my head. That's where I am. That's where I'm situated. So it's
well, I
not surprising that I can write these books.
not at all. It's nice actually if you have the old handwritten versions because it is a nice thing. Unfortunately, for future generations, they will not have for all those students who are going to do
Right.
a
Yeah.
thesis about I think what have they done now like 3,000, 4,000 graduate thesis for F. Scott Fitzgerald, and they have all
Right.
his writing by hand they can look
Yeah.
at. For the
Yeah.
modern authors, everything is like a doc
Well,
file and it's gone.
the NYU, my papers are at NYU, and I do have some manuscripts by hand because I would originally write in a notebook, but somehow the notion of manuscripts, the notion of a kind of eternity doesn't appeal to me. So I hide. I hide from myself and I exist, as my wife will tell you, or as my mother said, I'm a closed book. So that's what you get.
It's so much fun. Now, the new book, of course, what is fascinating about it is it's so fresh.
Right.
Maria la Divina. It
Yeah.
is, it is, the voice is so young, it's so fresh. It flows. It's there, it's perfect.
I fell in love with her. I saw just by chance. I think that my wife and I watched Maria by Callas, which was a documentary, And she came from a poor background, just as I did. She grew up in Washington Heights, where I lived for part of the time. And she spoke in a very cultivated voice, but when she cursed like a truck driver, so that I felt an immediate affinity with her. And I just, while the program was on, I told my wife, I'm going to marry this woman. I'm going to divorce you and marry a dead woman. So I don't know how she took that, but of course she laughed.
And I've of course seen that documentary, and she comes across, there's a charm and there's a beauty in her face.
She's a diva. She has that dignity, that quality of. She's a queen, as she said when she plays a. I know how to play a queen. She was a queen, and you can never take that away from her. Even though she had a very sad life, and Onassis deserted her, she had a kind of dignity that very few people have, and she was the diva of divas.
She was just absolutely, when you, sometimes it's beshert, you come across something, you
Right.
don't expect it. It could be a
Yeah.
footnote in a book, it could be seeing a
Exactly.
documentary, and it can change, that moment can change your life, because she's
Yes.
filled your life now with music that wasn't there before.
Oh, and when you listen now to the Casta Diva, her aria from Norma, you really almost want to cry every time I listen to it. And as Rudolph Bing at the Metropolitan said, that she defined every opera she sang, and no one else could sing that role. And she had that kind of power, that devotion. I wouldn't even call it a craft, because I think she came alive on the stage as no other singer has and will ever have. She's unique.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, they made that movie, Angelina Jolie,
I know.
and at the end they show part of the documentary, they show her, and if you watch it again, it's so cute. She winks, and when she
Right.
winks, there's so much joy in that wink. Few people
Yeah.
can, you wink with, it's, I'm giving it to you, I love you, I'm loving you, and you love
Yeah.
me. It's such a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. No, she was. She was an incredible person. And it's sad that it's also sad for Onassis that he made the choice of marrying Jackie Kennedy, who was an extraordinary woman, but was not a woman for him. And by deserting Maria, he not only ruined her life, but ruined his own.
Exactly. I could not understand his attitude about it, wanting this
Well, she
fine
was a
name.
trophy. He saw her as a kind of trophy, and I don't like to say it, but it's true. He was a male chauvinist. In other words, he hid Maria. He was a little bit ashamed. He said, You're just a woman who's lost her whistle." And she was so devoted to him. She wouldn't wear glasses when she was with him because he didn't want her to. So she was always going around half blind everywhere. When they went to Maxime's, she didn't know even to take one step. It was bizarre, but she was really devoted to him and really in love with him. And he was such a fool, such a jackass, and he understood that at the very end of his life, that he had lost a treasure that had kept him alive. And he didn't, he was, men are stupid, I must say that. We are very stupid. Women are so much smarter than we are, and they should run the world, and we should sit in the cave and let them do everything.
Oh, okay. You're channeling a little bit of Charlotte Bronte there from
Yeah.
her book Shirley. Did you ever read that book of Bronte's,
No,
Shirley?
but I haven't read it, but I'm sure I have read it.
You should. Most people have not read that book. They've read, of course,
Yeah.
Jane Eyre and all that, but go and read that, because you will see how very modern that book is. In Shirley, she really
Okay.
tells it. Whoa, it's
Well,
fantastic. I'm glad that you mentioned the glasses, because the funny thing is, I had never thought before how difficult it is for singers, anyone on stage, if they need glasses. For singers, they can't see the conductor.
no, that not only could she not see the conductor, she couldn't see the stage itself. You have to remember that before, every time she went to a new theater and to see the way the stage was dressed, She had to go from piece to piece and memorize every particle of furniture. And when she was younger, she went up to the roof of her building and chalked out the way the stage was, and walked or did a kind of ballet from step to capture the way the stage was. And so she danced on the stage because she knew where everything was. She was unlike any other singer in that at every rehearsal she sang in full voice. No other singer has ever done that. So it's no wonder that she lost her voice at an early age, because she was singing at full voice every time she was on the stage. And there's no one else like her, and there will never be anyone else like her again. So we should rejoice that she existed. And I'm still in love with her, but I'm also in love with my wife.
That's good. That's good. Because what I love about the book, as I said, it's fresh. You're writing partly in the voice of a girl. You're like
Yes,
you capture this girl and all that goes around it, and uh, hope that people will read this book because they will fall in love with the girl from your book.
I like to write about strong women, and I do believe that there isn't that much difference. Oh, there's a great difference between the sexes, the sexuality. I'm very drawn to strong women like Emily Dickinson, like Rita Hayworth in her own way. Even though she had her problems, she also was an extraordinary woman. It I immersed myself in Maria and read everything I could. In other words, when you're doing research, you're not looking for facts, you're looking for details. And that one, you can read 10 books and find two details, but those two details will make the book. That's the way I work. I burrow in, and then, because very few others have written about her time in Greece, and that was a very important time for her because she did have a career. And one critic said she couldn't have been making love as a teenager. That's nonsense. She was making love as a teenager. It's clear, it's true, and people just don't want to admit it. So, in other words, I discovered a treasure and I used it as much as I could. And I'm so glad I was able to uncover her life in Greece, because that's where it all began.
Exactly. And that's in this movie they made of her. They missed all of that. And that is so rich. That story, I
Yes,
did not know all of this. Of course, I knew
they missed everything in that movie. I'm so sorry. I wish I had been there first and they had made a movie of my book, because I would have done it in such a different way. And also, they didn't even have the romance between her and Onassis, which was the heart of her life. Give me a break. You're showing her in her last week, and you're having her go outside when she never left her apartment on the Avenue Georges Mandel, which I passed when I lived in Paris. When I went to my accountant, I passed that street every day. And of course, I didn't know that she had lived there. If I had known that, I would have stood outside that building and lit a candle.
they missed so much. The Grease part, I think you wrote that so perfectly. I was so excited about it. In a biography, there isn't always a sort of a arc of action, but in this, there's
Yes.
action in that section of the book.
Yeah, but that's the advantage that the novelist has. I try to stick. I know the story. In other words, I've researched everything. So if I were doing a biography, I could give you a biography. But I don't want that. I want to invent where I have to invent. And it seems to me that there are certain biographers like Doris Kearns Goodwin who almost write novels when they write biographies. Or biography of Lincoln is better than any novel anyone could have written about Lincoln, even though I did write one myself. But the novelist has a disadvantage and an advantage. In other words, you can't twist history around and give her red hair when she didn't have it, but you can invent adventures for her. You can create a world that is parallel to the world she lived in. And I find myself much more comfortable, even though I have, let's say, written a biography of Joe DiMaggio, for example. But even in that biography, it's not fictional, but I did it almost as a kind of dreamscape of what his life was like. Because throwing facts on a page give you nothing. You need the music. You need the music, the romance of language. And I think that's what you felt in the part about Greece.
Definitely. And what leads up to that, so explain to people, she's born in New York.
Born
And,
in New York at Flower Fifth Avenue Hospital. Actually, she's born in Manhattan, but she lives in Astoria, which is known as Little Athens at the time. Her father was a pharmacist. Then they later moved to Manhattan and later on moved to Washington Heights. And then her mother in the 30s, Deanna, you have to remember the movie stars. You had Sonia Henney, who was a skater in the 30s. You had Esther Williams, who was a swimmer, and these were all movie stars. And you had Deanna Durbin, who was an opera singer. And everyone in the United States wanted their daughter to be another Deanna Durbin. And this is what her mother, Maria's mother, wanted her to be another Deanna Durbin so that they can mint all the money in the world. And Maria wasn't interested in that. She was a different kind of person. She wasn't a person who was after wealth. She wanted perfection on the stage. She lived on the stage. That's where her heart was.
and that fabulous voice, it just came to her.
Yes, she was trained by Madame Hidalgo in Greece, and she could sing bel canto, which was an extraordinary free flow of language, but always sticking to the music. And she was an extraordinary woman, the diva of divas.
Now, as a child, of course, explained her big love in in addition to singing was ice cream. She was
She
not the
loved,
like the pretty girl that like Deanna Durbin was. So there was
no,
she had to go a different route anyway.
yes, she was very heavy. As a matter of fact, until she saw Roman Holiday and Audrey Hepburn saw her in Roman Holiday, she fell in love with her, and she lost 80 pounds in 1 year. And all the people in Italy, they didn't write about her singing. They wrote about this incredible diet that no one understood. Some crazy doctor gave her something to drink, and she lost all this weight. And they said that she would no longer have the breath to sing, but it didn't have any effect at all. She became from this very heavy, sort of broad woman who trot around like Gargantua. She became a beautiful woman, and all the designers wanted her to model their clothes, but she wasn't interested in that. She was interested in her art.
Exactly. But she did wear clothes. She did.
She wore clothes, yes, of course. Every most women, I don't know. I'm not as interested in clothes, but I'm sure that, yes, she dressed beautifully, but she didn't want to be a model for designers. That wasn't her interest.
One of the sections that I love, really love, is Elsa Maxwell. Of course, Elsa Maxwell, the hostess with the mostest,
Exactly.
and an American institution. Elsa Maxwell was
Yes.
between Hollywood and Washington, D.C. and New York. She was the it person. And
Yes. She was the Yenta of the world.
exactly, exactly.
She was an extraordinary woman who just went everywhere, knew everyone. And at first, she hated Maria. She preferred Renata Tebaldi, another opera singer. And then Maria said, "Who the hell is this woman who's writing such bad things about me?" And the moment she met Elsa Maxwell was spellbound, and she fell in love with Maria and followed her everywhere. They became friends, and then, of course, Elsa Maxwell wanted Maria to leave her husband and run away with her. And of course, Maria wasn't going to do that.
That was a fascinating part of American history because people have heard of Elsa Maxwell, but here
Yes,
you really put a face on her.
yes.
Dumpy, as she
This
was
is what
called.
the novelist can do. I
Yeah.
mean, or and I'm not only talking about myself. This is a good novelist, like a carpenter or a plumber or a person who has his or her craft, can take the historical figure and with one or two details can breathe life into that figure in a way that most biographers cannot do. And that's why most biographies are, I wouldn't say they're a waste of time because they give you important information, but they don't know how to recreate, how to conjure up the person and bring that person to life.
Which is why Big Red, I think, was so impressive because before Big Red, I was not interested in Orson Welles. Somehow I was like against him. I don't know why. I don't know what my impression was of him. I just wasn't interested in him. And then, of course, I read Big Red. And then
Right.
once you read that, you have a whole different idea of him.
Yes, because I recreated the person that he was. He had his faults, he had his arrogance, but he was a master. He was a genius, and a genius maybe who didn't fulfill the promise that he had. But it seems to me that just from the quote at the beginning of the book, we must all go on singing. We must all, even in the worst of times, we must continue to sing. And that would be my motto too. You must not lose that voice, that resonance, the song. Songs are everything in life. And if you don't have the music, you don't have life.
And in a way, it's a very Yiddish concept too that
Yes,
Shabbat is coming and you're going to have Shabbat and you're going to enjoy it. It's there.
exactly, exactly. And you
Yeah,
might as well enjoy it. Yeah.
that's right. You might as well enjoy it. Go
It
for it.
may be the last one we're going to have, but you might as well enjoy
That's
it.
right. Go for it. Go for it full without any stops. Just enjoy it. So we have that.
In full voice.
Exactly. In full voice. So your life has become enriched by the number of hours you spent listening to her singing.
Yeah.
That's pretty marvelous.
I think you have to because this is what you do as a novelist. You become a master of so many trades. And if you're writing about an opera singer, you have to know opera. You have to understand what the voice is, how she would train. And that's why it was so important to see her as a child, studying with Madame Hidalgo, who really created her as a singer and understood the power of the magnificence of her voice. And also remember, she was a great actress. It's not only that she sang so well, she acted the roles. When she had to play Anna Boleyn, she was asked, study your history. He said, I don't have to study any history. I know what it means to be a queen. She could play that role, and that's what was so extraordinary about it. Every role she played, she became that person, and unforgettable in every sense.
And of course, I worked for Italian bank in Milan. So I
Right.
got to go to La Scala. So
Oh, wonderful.
I've been
I'm
there.
jealous of you. I hate you now because you've done something that I didn't do.
Yeah, it was
We're no longer friends.
it was wonderful when you work for an Italian bank in Milan, you get tickets. But
Yeah, but I know it's a treasure. It's a treasure to be able to do that and to visit La Scala, which I should have done, but never did. And that I've been to the Met, but not to La Scala.
so what was the first opera you ever saw as a young man? You went to
So
Columbia University, so you guys
yes,
there, you could get cheap tickets to the Met
yeah,
those
I
days,
saw
couldn't you?
my first opera was Don Giovanni, and I loved the repartee between Leporello and Don Giovanni. I fell in love with. It was almost like King Lear, Lear and the Fool between Leporello and Don Giovanni. That's how I discovered opera, and the fact that operas, like one person wrote about these 14, 12 crime novels that about a particular character, and he called it an opera, operatic. And I think this novel also is operatic. It is almost like the writing is very musical in a way. So there is a resemblance between opera and fiction, at least as far as this novel is concerned. It is, I think, I hope, operatic.
Now, of course, you also lived in Paris quite a while. Did you go to the Paris
Yes, I
Opera?
did. Not very often. I was very busy because I was teaching, but I did not. I wish I had, but I was just too busy writing and teaching. Didn't leave you much free time.
While we're just on Paris for a minute, you got an award in Paris from the
Yes,
Minister of Culture. Explain
from the
that.
culture. There, I was a. There's an award called the Order of Arts and Letters, and the highest award. There are three levels, and the highest is a commander. So I was a commander of arts and letters, and Susan Sontag was also one, but not very many Americans have that award.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's pretty good when the French have to give you an award for writing.
Well, somebody has to.
Who are your favorite French novelists?
Robespierre is my favorite French novelist. I love him, and I also love the French New Wave in cinema. Truffaut to me, and Godard, because I taught cinema, and them the New Wave, which sort of followed American cinema in a sense, and with the understanding that they could make films cheaply with a handheld camera. But I love French cinema, and I became friendly with Truffaut's wife, and I helped do a documentary about him. And I loved his work. I wish he had been alive when I was in Paris. I would have loved to meet him.
So, did you go to the American Library in Paris?
Oh, of course. Yeah. And I
Well,
spoke there many.
I locked in there one night.
How did that happen? That's already an
Well,
opera.
it was a tricky deal because I wanted to do that. So I talked up a young man because I was a young girl, and I just said, "You're working tonight, you're stacking books. I'm expert at stacking books. I've been working in the library since I was in grade school, and I managed to finagle my way in there, and between stacking books and drinking a little bit of wine and eating cheese,
Right.
so to
You're a
spend the night.
bad girl, PatZi. You're a bad girl. Admit it.
Oh, I was. It was. I love it. I would love to get locked in for a night in every library in the world. It's
Yeah, and that's a
magical.
very good, it's a very good library. And I've donated a lot of books to that library. When I left Paris, I had my assistant put some books together and I donated them to the American Library. I
Good.
often there, and I spoke there too, many times.
Yeah, so it's a special place. But whenever I'm in a town, I always go to the libraries. And I lived in England for quite a while. When I was young, I bought a cottage in England, and
Oh my God.
I
You
spent
are
a
an
lot of
adventurer.
time. What?
You're an adventurous.
Oh, I was.
I should be doing a novel about you.
Oh, I was unbelievable. I decided when I was 11 to move to England
Oh
because
my
of Jane
God.
Austen. I saved my
Yeah.
money, and when I was 21 years old, I had $25,000 in cash, and I moved to England.
How wonderful.
And then I did spend many years there in the reading room at the British Museum. That's where I did a lot
Yeah,
of
it's a
research.
wonderful place and it's a wonderful part of London. Yeah.
Yeah. But then now they've covered it with glass. You can't go in there.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah.
Disgusting.
Everything is sad. And New York is also sad. It's not
Yeah.
the city I grew up in. I
It's
live in an area that is the whole area is an historical landmark, so you don't have any skyscrapers where I live, and I have a view of the park and a view of the river. And even though the windows are very dirty, the it's I'm lucky that I was able, I have many failures and things, missed opportunities, but I always wanted to live in Paris, and I did. And I always wanted to live in Greenwich Village, and I do. Those are the features of my life.
Yeah, and whatever little I know about the Bronx comes from you
Yeah,
because I've only been to the Bronx
exactly.
once. It's so funny. We found
And
it.
you don't need to go there again.
No, we found a relative that we had been
Yeah,
searching for from the Holocaust, a survivor.
yeah,
We found
yes,
a 90-year-old relative who lived in the Bronx from Lithuania originally.
right.
And so my husband and I made the journey out to the Bronx. We had never been on that side. We had never, and it was crazier. We had been all over the world. We lived in the Middle East, and there was nothing like the Bronx. We were scared, actually.
No, it was there. There are certain areas, for example, there's an area of Art Deco buildings which are treasures, but for the most part, it's a forgotten place. It's a place where that has lost its history, and it's sad. Though from generation to generation, people evolve, and I go back to my old neighborhood, and there was one place where I lived between the ages of 5 and 8, which was near the Yankee Stadium, and that's the book I'm writing about now. Is about a boy who lives in the hotel called the Concourse Plaza, and that was my home. And of all the places I ever lived, that's the place I feel the closest to.
We never went back to the Bronx. We and only other time we managed to see him, we sent a car for him to
Yeah,
the city.
a good idea.
We weren't up to it. We didn't want to do that again. Oh, it was quite a thing. But of course, you've written a lot about the Bronx, but you don't
Oh
have to.
yes, oh, yeah, it is my history, so I do feel a hatred and a love. And I've written a young adult novel called Silver Wolves, and which is all about the Bronx. And I play a role in it myself. I put myself in my own novel and my older brother, disguised, of course. But it was fun to do, to relive your own past. And this is what you can do as a writer. And
That's it. That's the
people
joy of
perhaps
being a writer.
Truffaut managed to do that in The 400 Blows, which is a wonderful film, and I would suggest that you see it. But it's very rare that you can re enter your own childhood and have and relive those feelings. I think when you reach a certain age, you go back, your mind goes back, and you can relive certain aspects. But this was the time and the place that I remember the most. It was during World War II. We were always frightened that the Germans would be coming down the block. And of course, they never did.
One of the things I love about this book, Maria la Divina, is that you take this love story between her and Onassis out of
Yeah.
being a soap opera. So much of it is just a soap opera to most people.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But this is something deep. For her, it was so deep.
Oh,
Um,
yes. It was the love of her life. And I think I don't want to congratulate myself because I don't think that's right. But I think I did manage to capture the resonance of that relationship and the importance to her and the subconscious feelings he had for her and somehow wasn't able to act out. In other words, he was so ambitious that he saw Jackie Kennedy as another sort of trophy that he could add to his other trophies. And he faltered, he fell. She was much too clever for him. I admire her a great deal, but he was no match for her. I can tell you that.
yeah, it's like you say, men can be really stupid sometimes. They don't realize when they've got a good thing, but
Stupid, exactly. Stupid is even not strong enough. But
but
it was fun. But that provides the drama of the novel. The his arrogance and then his despair. He would leave his apartment and stand under her window and whistle at her in the middle of the morning. And First, she didn't, there's an opera right there. At first, she didn't respond, and then she had her maid let him upstairs and feed him
Yeah.
because he was like a wolf, a lost wolf. He was a wolf.
And you can imagine him singing. He's often walked on that street before. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
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 Now, as a New Yorker, did you see Jackie Kennedy? Have you met her? I mean, there were a lot of
No,
other places.
I,
She was always in
sadly,
the literary world.
yeah, she was an editor at Doubleday, but she was not, I don't think she edited much fiction. She was a fascinating woman. I don't want to take anything away from her, but in one sense, she did hurt Maria. You can't blame her in any way because it was Onassis' fault. But Maria really didn't want to sing when she met. That was interesting. Her life was all singing, and when she met Onassis, she didn't want to sing anymore. She wanted to have a child, to live with him and be a woman. And the only way that she could live, in a sense, sadly, was on stage. But that's our gift. It's too bad that we don't have more televised images of her. We can't replay her world, but I wish that film had been about her, had been a better film. I could have made a better film than that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I wish somebody would pick it up. I wish somebody would the, do it the
I
correct
want to
way.
do a stage play, and I'm in the process of trying to get that done.
Oh,
And maybe I should tell you, and maybe I have to ask my wife. That, no, we can't really mention who we want to get, but I will mention we want Lady Gaga to play her because she would be wonderful. She could sing in her own voice, and she would be perfect for Maria. And this is what we're going to try to do.
but my part, the older Maria is interesting, but I like the younger one. I can see her. I can imagine her as somebody who I wrote scripts when I was in Hollywood, and
Right.
oh, I would love to work on the young Maria Callas. I would love to. I would just,
Maybe you will. I mean, look, let's do the deal right now. We're here together, so we
yeah,
might as well get to work. I mean,
yeah, I could do it. I could do it. I could sit down and do it because I feel her. I feel like I'm like, in a way, she takes my breath away. I just,
I'm happy when you say that because that's exactly what an author wants. He wants to break your heart, that he wants to, that you will never forget the experience of reading about this woman. And it took me a long time to write the novel, and I did many drafts, and I loved writing about her. She was, I felt a real closeness to her.
so you started it sometime after after COVID because I don't, a time, our time frame has been all messed up.
Yeah, COVID destroyed me too, and I hate to tell you how I shouldn't have ever had COVID, but some stupid woman really gave it to me and lied. But okay, I won't get into that.
I know we all went through it. I
But I certainly don't want to get it again.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. But you also mentioned, and I can't let you go without talking about Emily Dickinson because
Absolutely.
this, you have a take on her unlike anybody else. And I love it because,
Sure.
in a way,
Why do you expect that I wouldn't?
of course you would. Of course you would. But you address something, and it's what I feel very much about Charlotte Bronte,
Yeah,
the sexuality that is there. And
yeah,
you'll see it if you read the book Shirley, more than
yeah,
all of her other books. There's power in there. So
yeah.
you just, most people just think, oh, she was a shy little girl who just hid away in a house and didn't want to see anybody. But
Right.
I agree with you. I don't think so. I think she was, whoo, she was full
She
of
was a
life.
very powerful woman, and maybe one day we will understand that sexuality is far more complicated than we're allowed to discuss or allowed to think. And also, it's a miracle that we have her work, because it's because of her maid that the poems were recaptured, because she wanted them burned. And the thing is that, and the fact that she's more visible to us today than she ever was, and it's been a long time, and she will remain with us so long as humans inhabit the earth, because she used language in such an extraordinary way. She and Shakespeare are the two writers, and maybe Melville, I would say, is the third. I can't understand how she was able to do some of those poems. Perhaps there's a banality in some of them, but in others, there's a kind of whiplash that you don't see anywhere else.
Again, how did you come upon the idea? First, you wrote The Secret Life, or The
Yeah,
Secret Life of Emily Dickinson. And then I think
right.
4 or 5 years later, you come out with this second book, A Loaded Gun. What
I,
first?
I,
How did the first book come to you?
I loved her. The one poem I memorized, and I memorized it from high school, was a poem by Emily Dickinson. But the thing is that I wanted to write about her, and when I finished the novel, first of all, there was a lot of new information about her sexuality that I didn't have access to when I wrote the book. Because remember, I read everything I could about her, but the fact that she might have been bisexual was never revealed, and was never discussed until I had finished the novel. So I wasn't going to do another novel. So I decided to do a nonfiction book, and I had a contract from a very prestigious university, which I will not name. And when they saw the book, it was too far out for them. And sadly, I wasn't able to publish it there. But the thing is that she was, like Maria, a very, we don't see, we see her as this sort of shy creature. And she wasn't. She was a very strong, powerful woman. And one day we'll understand. We don't understand that now. And even most scholars don't see that, but she had a kind of power that very few people, and a dignity, because remember, she worked at night, and most people around her didn't even know that she was writing poetry. Her father said that she had a brother, and the father said that his compositions were better than Shakespeare when he had Shakespeare in the bedroom upstairs. So it's completely crazy. The world is crazy, PatZi. You have to understand that.
I always wondered how, first of all, how she wrote at night, or how anybody wrote at night, because about 6 months ago, we had here in Austin, Texas, we had a major storm, knocked
Right.
out the transformer for
Yeah.
4 days. We didn't have
Right.
electricity. Everybody went crazy. But having
Yeah.
moved from Florida, I was prepared. Unlike most people, I had battery operated fans because
You're very clever.
I like being in the
Yeah.
dark.
But you survived it. So
I
here we
survived
are.
it. You don't need glasses, so you're doing pretty good.
I just had two cataract operations, so I'm the bionic man.
Okay, that's good.
But yeah, she wrote at night, and also she had a sister, Lavinia, and scholars don't really know to this day, and we have the same house. They don't know where Lavinia slept. Nobody knows where her sister slept. Some say they slept in her with Emily in her. She had a bed that was like this wide. She got to sleep on her side. So she couldn't have slept in the same bed. So where did she sleep? Nobody knows. It's a great mystery. If they can't even solve that mystery, how can they solve the mystery of her personality? Which was, remember, you think of her as a shy woman. She had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and prepare breakfast. She was doing housework for hours. And the only time she had to write, because remember, her mother became paralyzed at a fairly early age, and Emily and her sister had to take care of her. So she could only write in the middle of the night. And of course, they didn't even know that their daughter was a poet. The world is strange, the world is fascinating, and there are always secrets to learn. there's always another secret.
And you have to tell us, of course, you've taught a lot of both writing classes and other types of classes. What, mostly writing classes, or have you taught straight
No,
history
most
classes?
I did teach writing, of course. I was a professor. But the thing is, I didn't enjoy writing classes because I was a writer and I was had to deal with things that were important to me, but I'm not a filmmaker. I never wanted to be a director. I never want, even though I was a member of the actor studio, I was a member at the side of the actor studio because I was belonged to a playwright directors group there. And I loved it. I worked with Kazan and with many others, and we had actors that we could work with. But the thing is that all I can say is we live in a very strange world, and I'm not surprised by anything. Nothing surprises me anymore.
What's the biggest changes for you in the publishing world since you started? Now, for you, you can write anything you want. Nobody's going to question your content. I know so many
No,
authors today. There's more
that's it.
content provision
It's
than.
not true. First of all, there are things you can no longer say. There's words you can't mention. Publishing is very different today. When I started writing, a publisher believed in an author and would follow that author for 4 or 5 or 6 books, hoping that at some point, and remember, there were always library sales, so that every time we forget that novels, but remember, I'm writing, quote, literary novels. It's not the same thing as romances, et cetera, et cetera. But you could always count on 1,000 library sales. Now, that's very important. Now you can count on five if you're lucky. You can't publish in the same way. And so a publisher could afford to follow the career of an author. You can't do that anymore. Very often you have a debut novel, you get a tremendous advance, and then that novelist is never heard from again because obviously the book doesn't sell. It's a very tenuous, to me, it was never a business. I never really wanted to. I would like to have made money, but that I never thought of earning money for my writing. I thought of being an apprentice. Even at 88, I am still an apprentice. And it's interesting, my wife is wonderful at puzzles. She can do any kind of puzzle in the world, and I can't. I don't have that gift. I couldn't even do a crossword puzzle, but I have the music, and very few people have that. I have them. To me, it's like an opera. And when I write the sentence, I'm thinking of the music. I'm thinking of it, how it sounds, and that the meaning itself comes from the sound of the sentence. And most writers wouldn't agree with that, but this is the way I see writing.
What I love about Maria la Divina is that, of course, there's an audible book, but I can just take it,
Right,
read it out loud. And there are passages, like in the beginning, when I'm reading it, I would think, oh, he's writing in such a young voice, like a young girl. How does he get this
exactly.
voice? How does he do it?
Yeah, and also I must say that I wish you would read the audiobook because it's done by my stepdaughter, Eden Regal, who was the star of All My Children, and she's done a wonderful job on. And and she said that when she finished the book, she cried. She was very moved by it. But so the I'm very interested in audiobooks and how they're read because I think that is the future. You must know yourself, PatZi, because you go to libraries, that people don't read anymore. For example, when college students are no longer asked to read entire novels, they read chapters.
I
Now,
know.
when I was a college student, I had to read 5 books a week if I was lucky.
I know. It's crazy. I was reading at such a young age and I was so advanced.
But
I,
you were unique in the way that I didn't start reading until I was 18. I read my first. Of course, I read novels at school, The Tale of Two Cities, and of course we had to read Hamlet and Macbeth. But I was not a reader. I was not a reader, and it's a strange thing. I was not a reader, and yet I understood. I wanted to be a painter, and so what I could do in the end was paint with words. Because I didn't have the talent. I went to the High School of Music and Art thinking I would be the new Van Gogh, and I saw these gifted kids, and I felt terrible, felt awful. But I began to paint with words, and that's
Well,
what I've been.
that is a perfect description of you. You paint with words. You paint
Yeah,
beautifully.
thanks so.
I did start reading young. I was expelled when I was in 11th grade. I was expelled from English class. I'd already read by then. I'd read over 1,000 books. I was
Yeah,
expelled because I laughed at the. She was the advanced literature teacher, a young woman. Everybody was real excited. There were like 20 students. And the first thing she did on the first day, she said that she tried to read War and Peace over the summer and just couldn't get through it. And I
yeah.
laughed
Well,
at her. And
yeah,
I
I
said,
would too. I would too.
that's stupid.
Yeah.
And she kicked me out of the class. And I spent the whole semester sitting in the vice principal's office because she wouldn't let me
Well,
back.
when I was a college student, the sign, the mark of being a reader was whether you had read War and Peace or not. And I had read War and Peace. As a matter of fact, I read all of the Russian novels, all of Dostoevsky, and I read some of them in Russian. I shouldn't take credit for that because Joyce Carol Oates said that about my writing. It's like riding a horse.
It is, and it's a great experience, absolutely great experience to do it. Jerome, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on Joy on Paper.
Well, thank you,
It's
Patsy.
always a joy to talk to you. And
And
the book is,
I had a lot of, I want you to know I had a lot of fun.
well, thank you. I have a lot of fun talking to you always. Maria la Divina, and it's by Jerome Charron. They need to make a new movie.
We will do that together.
Yeah, you know what happened to me? I was so angry in general about AI. I was just so
Yeah,
angry about AI. I do not like they mixed the voices.
right.
Angelina Jolie's voice with her voice. Yeah, you cannot do that. That's AI. That's not a real voice.
Yeah,
I don't want people to listen to that voice. You have to listen to the purity of the real Callas. You don't want to throw in Angelina Jolie. First of all, she was the wrong person for the film. She's too beautiful.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. She was
I,
not the right person. It
she's
should
a
have been like,
California girl. She's a
yeah.
California girl. You can't take the California girl out of her. And just the wrong look.
But the screenwriter should have been he was very good. He's done other things that are remarkable, but this screenplay was very poor. I wish they had hired me,
Oh, I
and I
wish
would
they
have
had. I
dealt
wish they had.
with the love story between her and Onassis, which would have been heartbreaking, which would have been so wonderful. You have Maxime, you have so many. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. I know I was aching through it.
I shudder to think what you and I together could have done.
Oh, oh, what we could have done with it. I feel the magic of what we could have done with that film.
You
The
know,
2 hours of really wasted money, a
total
lot of
waste,
money.
a lot of money, and nothing happens.
Yeah,
There's magic. There's no
no,
magic
no.
to it.
And
Nothing.
you and I could have put magic in eating a bowl of ice cream more than, you know,
Exactly. And one day we will.
maybe we will do that. So again, Jerome, Sharon, you are amazing. You are fantastic. People, you can go to his website. You can check out his books. He's got 50 of them, for goodness sakes, 30 novels, I think.
Yeah.
But they're all great. All of your writing's great. And if you're
Thank you,
interested
Pat.
in Emily Dickinson, definitely check out his books because he gives you a new perspective on Emily Dickinson. Again, this is a wonderful book, Maria la Divina by Jerome Charron. It's available today because it's 48 years since she passed away.
Yeah,
48
it's
years.
sad.
Yeah,
It's really sad.
it
She
is.
shouldn't have died at that age. She died of a broken heart. She
Exactly, exactly.
loved Onassis so much. You and I will mourn her together.
We have 2 years, and for the 50th anniversary, perhaps by then we can get a movie going, a proper movie. It doesn't have to be a high budget movie, it has to
No,
be an intimate movie. It has to be a movie just full of
It has
joy.
to have some content. There was no content to
Good
that.
idea. My goodness, we want content. What's wrong with us? What
Yeah.
we're
We want a story. We want to be moved by what we see, and not
that's
not some nonsense.
exactly. Jerome, thank you again. It's been a joy to
Thank you.
talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye
Stay
bye now.
well.
Okay,
Goodbye.
you too. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
And I'm looking forward to the Yankees story, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so
thanks.
much.
Bye bye.